by the way. I'm a huge fan. I'm highly ADD. I'm like, I need a better process because I got all these balls in the air and I got to simplify things into process. But last year, my word was soul. And I made a pact that everything that I do in 2019, I'm going to do it with soul or I'm not going to do it. And when I watch Marie talk, like, why do anything if you're not going to do it with 100% of your soul? When I watched her presentation and every time I watch her talk, and any great entrepreneur, any great leader, anyone, any great parent, any great friend, they have that same quality. They do everything with soul. There's a famous quote that I love, Pete: how you do anything is how you do everything. And I said last time, my only agenda on the call was to provide value. So in this call, I want to honor that as well. But I also want you guys to feel and understand how much soul is behind what I'm about to talk about. I noticed that both you and Marie Pete, were talking about your grandma and the role that your grandparents, specifically your grandmas, have played in your life. Sarah lost her grandma about almost, I guess, a year or two ago. And when we were at the funeral, it was a very powerful moment, something that I realized I want to share with everybody. During the service, when the priest was giving her the speech about Nanny, he was saying, as he should, all the amazing accomplishments and things that she did in her lifetime. Nanny started out and worked at a store, and she met her husband in kindergarten, and she went on to do this and do that. And it was amazing recap of 90 years of an amazing life. But I realized that the real question that we should ask ourselves at the end of the road is not like, what did we do? But how do we live our life? How do we choose to live our life? How do we show up for our kids? How do we show up to work? How do we treat our customers? How do we take care of our neighbors that were in need? How do we choose to live with soul? And nobody here on this call needs me to tell you that life goes fast. Everybody knows our journey, it goes fast. But I want to share a quick analogy, a quick little story that I think will really hit home, and then get into what I want to talk about today, is how to think like an entrepreneur and pick up where we left off. But I think this is really relevant, no matter where you are on your journey. The day we wake up, we go on this bus ride, all right? We get in the bus, we put the keys in, they give us the steering wheel, and we start going on this bus ride. And I said, like I said, you don't need me to tell you it goes fast. And then all of a sudden, the bus starts going. Then all of a sudden, we're a senior in high school, and they say, wow, Jesse, you better enjoy your senior year. It's going to go fast. And then all of a sudden we go to college, and then maybe we meet somebody and we get married, and then we have a child, and then our son or daughter is 10 years old, and in 8 years you're going to be an empty nester, and the bus just keeps moving. The bus doesn't care if you get sick. The bus doesn't care if you're lazy. The bus doesn't care if you take a day off from work. It just keeps going until one day, boom, the bus ride's over. It's done. I'm 51 years old, man. I'm 51 years old. This much of my life, it's over. Wherever you are on your journey, I don't care if you're broke, overweight, struggling with finances, struggling to figure it out, feeling overwhelmed, all that stuff that's happened, it's done. What matters to me, what should matter to all of us, is how do we maximize from this moment on until the end of the bus ride? That's the important thing. We can't get this back. I don't have a marquee jet hat. I don't think about Zico coconut water. I don't think about the time I got booed off stage during my rap career. It's all done, man. What I think about is from this moment until how do we maximize this? And I want to do this much stuff in this much amount of time. And we never know when that bus ride's going to end. Our focus, when we listen to amazing thought leaders like Marie and all these other amazing leaders of industry and pop culture and business and parenthood, and that have all gone through their own journey, is taking out the nuggets that apply to us to figure out how we can make this amount of time from here to the end of the journey as impactful, successful, adventurous, and full of soul that we can. That's what I want to talk to you guys about today. I want to take everybody back to early on in my career, okay? I started out from very humble beginnings. I mentioned this in the last call. My dad owned a plumbing supply house in Mineola, Long Island. My mother raised myself and my brother and my sister's 4 kids. And I had a lot, for those that don't know me, I had a lot of very unconventional journey, a lot of odd jobs. I was a rapper, signed to a record label. I got dropped from that label. I was a kiddie pool attendant. I sold chicken, celery and carrot sticks door to door, all in a very short period. I slept on 18 different couches during my journey trying to figure it out. 4 years after this crazy time in my life, I started a private jet company called Marquis Jet with no business experience, no aviation experience, and no money. I was a kiddie pool attendant 4 years before this. We went on to do $5 billion in sales and sell the company to a Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett company. But like everybody on this call, it started with an idea. And you never know when you have an idea that's going to change the trajectory of your life. I want to take you back to this journey at Marquis Jet, when I was in the shoes of many people here, staying on my friends', couches in different apartments and this and that. We started this company and I was looking for my first customer. All right. And at this time in my life, there was no sophisticated sales lead generation system. The only way that I could get a potential customer was to go where rich people were. That was that was it. Like, where are wealthy people congregating? That's where I'm going to go. And I heard about this conference in Monterey, California called TED. And I heard that there were a lot of business owners at TED. So I took a flight. I connected 2 connections to California, a 5-hour drive. It was a 16-hour journey to get to the TED conference. And when I get to the TED conference, I'm going to try to get into the event. I realize it's like Fort Knox. Everybody there has a huge credential and they're not letting anybody in, anyone near the venue without a credential. So I'm like, this is unbelievable. I just traveled 16 hours. I don't know anybody. I don't think I had a cell phone. I didn't have a cell phone. I had a beeper at that time. And I'm like, what am I going to do? So I go to the coffee shop next door and I realize every hour, people are coming in, hour and a half, on a break from the conference with their credentials, and they're buying lattes and muffins like crazy. So the next morning I woke up 5 o'clock. I was the first one at the coffee shop and I bought every single muffin that they had at the coffee. I now controlled all the muffin inventory in this part of California. So sure enough, I'm waiting for the first break. An hour or two later, the first wave of people from the conference come in with their big, amazing looking credentials. And the first guy goes up and he says, I would like to buy a latte and a muffin. And the lady says, I'm happy to give you a latte, sir, but we are all out of muffins. And the guy comes walking out and I said to him, sir, I'm sorry, I overheard the conversation. I actually have, I got a couple of extra muffins here. If you want a muffin, I'd be happy to share a muffin with you. So the guy's like, no. I said, no. I said, well, what do you do? What do you do? He says, I'm here for the TED conference. What do you do? I said, I own a small private jet company I just started called Marquis Jet. The guy said, no way. He said, I'm actually in the market for a private jet. Would you mind if I could learn a little bit more? I said, no, you want to sit down? He said, can I sit down with you? And I'm like, absolutely, Mr. Qualified in my head, qualified buyer, you can sit down. And he became my first sale at Marquis Jet, Josh Koppelman from half.com. I'm sure he'd be fine if I used his name. He was my first sale at Marquis Jet. And when I wrote my business plan for Marquis Jet, it never said in the business plan anywhere, I'm going to go travel 16 hours, go to this conference, sit in a coffee shop, buy muffins to get my first sale. What you think your journey is going to look like, okay? It doesn't necessarily work out like that. The key is to start the process, to put yourself in a position where you can attract luck. And if you don't have a seat at the table, you make one. And that's what I did. And after I got my first sale, I did the 3 things I've done my entire life to build deep, meaningful, authentic relationships with my customers, with my employees, with my kids, with my friends, with my family. I complimented him, I congratulated him, and I consoled him. What does that mean? What are you talking about? I'm gonna tell you what I'm talking about. I made my first sale to Mr. Koppelman. And then every time I had an opportunity, he expected me. Once we did the sale, he expected me to meet him at the airport and pick up his bags. He expected that. That's the expectation. We don't look for the expectation. That's normal. We have to go above what's expected. He expected me to pick up his calls. He expected me to do all that. He didn't expect a gift bag when he went to Mexico with a list of babysitters for his kids and things to do with his children and emergency contacts in case there's an emergency and a list of all. He didn't expect that every time he went away from me. So I complimented him, I congratulated him, and I consoled him. Anyone can do it. Here's exactly what I mean. Pete. Hey, Pete, it's Jesse. I just want to say, man, I know you have 4 kids, Pete?
4 kids,
yeah. 4 kids. I'm a dad of 4 as well. And I just want to call you today, Pete, just to let you know, man, I admire the way you parent. You're an unbelievable dad. And it's super inspiring me to watch a friend care so deeply about his kids. And I just want to let you know, man, as an outsider, it's really admirable. Now, I'm not calling Pete because he's on the cover of the Wall Street Journal or because he's changing all these lives during this time with this amazing Rise Up challenge. I'm calling him to compliment him when he doesn't expect it because I feel it's on my heart, man. I feel like I want to share that with him. Pete, I heard one of your sons just got into Duke University. Man, I got 4 kids. If Sarah and if one of our kids get into Duke University, we're just so happy for you, man. Anytime there's a big moment in your customer's life, a family's life, family member's life, a friend's life, you take advantage of calling them up to congratulate and you console. I had one of the toughest things, worst things that could happen to a parent happen to Sarah and I. And I got a knock on my door the next day. And it was my friend Dougie Fresh, the rapper. And I looked at her and I'm like, Doug, what are you doing here? He said, when you get news like that, you don't call, you show up. If you compliment, you congratulate, and you console the people in your life, it's going to lead to first, it's going to make you feel amazing, but it's going to put you in a position where people root for you, man, where people are rooting for you, where customers are going to want to give you referrals. So what happened? I did that to Josh Koppelman. He gave me a referral. And then I did it again and again and again and again until we did $5 billion in sales. You can read all these action steps, how-tos and this and that. At the end of the day, business is about getting into people's lives. People buy into people, stories, and momentum more than products. People buy into people. When I started out in business, just to share a quick story with you guys, I was doing jingles. I was writing theme songs for professional sports teams. And I wrote a song for the New York Knicks. It's called Go New York Go. I was 22 years old. And the Knicks paid me $4,000 for the song. By the time I paid the studio, engineer, producer, singer, lawyer, it cost me $4,800 to do the song. I know we got a lot of smart people on this call. So I'm going to ask you guys meaning guys and girls, is that a good business model? They paid me $4,000. It cost me $4,800. Is that a good business model? You're all wrong. It's an amazing business model because when you start out in business, you need a story. You need momentum. You need things to build. I would have paid the Knicks $5,000 so I could say that they were a client of mine. I would have paid them. People buy into people, stories and momentum. So create it. You are the business plan. You are the business plan. The business plan I wrote for Marquis Jet were words. I brought that shit to life, man, with my partner. I got on the plane. I created my own luck. I made it happen. So where we left off last week, we were talking about how does an entrepreneur think? Because you can't be an entrepreneur unless you think like an entrepreneur. All right. My dad was not an entrepreneur. He owned a plumbing supply. I guess he was, but he wasn't, he wasn't, we're all wired for more. That's how we're wired as humans. You ask people most question I get all the time, how do I scale my business faster? How do I scale my business? And I'm always like, why? Tell me why you want to scale your business. What do you want to do with your money? If I wired everybody on this call $10 million tomorrow, what would you do with it? Do you even know what you're playing for? Do you know what you want? I had a friend of mine, my friend Brian, and he said, I really want to, I was going through a really tough time. And I said to him, I said, Brian, if I wired you $10 million tomorrow, what would you do? And he thought about it. And he said, I'd move to California. I always wanted to live in California. He's 53. I said, Brian, this is going to sound nuts. Nobody's wiring you $10 million tomorrow, man. If you want to go to California, remember I talked about that bus ride? Before that bus goes all the way to the end, go to California. Save 6 months, go out there, put a deadline, make it happen. Like, this is what I'm talking about. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, it's so important to think like an entrepreneur. It's important to know what you want. Now, more, just because we're wired for more doesn't mean it's necessarily a good idea. You have an idea because it's going to give you more. It doesn't mean it's a good idea. I have a very simple test that I do, Pete. It's aggravation versus reward. I want low aggravation, man. I want the highest reward for low aggravation. If something is high aggravation for high reward, even people, I don't want high aggravation people, even if they give me high reward. I'm looking for the lowest aggravation. So when I look for businesses, I'm always looking for things that are low aggravation. Now, when I'm younger, I can handle the aggravation. So, in your 20s, it's a different story. But as you get older, that aggravation bar goes down significantly because the bus ride is shortening. All right. So let's go back to where we left off real quick. And let's talk about, I got my little list. I'm going to go back to the top in case anybody's coming for the first time. And I want to share this. Now, this is the gift that I got from Marquis Jet. Everyone's like, oh, wow, you sold your company. You sold your company to a Warren Buffett entity. That's unbelievable. What was it like? And for me, the greatest gift, now ROI, return on investment, it comes in a lot of different shapes and forms. It's not always money. Could be the lesson you learn on your journey, even if it didn't work. ROI, your return on investment, isn't always the money in your bank account. I've run a lot of races as an ultra runner and not gotten to the finish line, but I had the biggest ROI based on my experience in the bonds. Okay. So my biggest gift at Marquis Jet were the influencers that we flew. And I was a student. I used to watch them. We flew the 4,000 who's who of pop culture, athletes, entrepreneurs, CEOs. I was a sponge. I was 30 years old. I would watch the way they greeted the pilots, how they shook hands, how they communicated, who was nice to me, who wasn't, who sent me handwritten thank you notes and who didn't. And I would ask at every opportunity, how do you live? Tell me, what time do you get up? What's your morning ritual? How did you do this? How do you live rich? What do you do with your money? How do you spend your time? How do you take care of your kids? I was a sponge for that. And that was the gift that Marquis Jet gave me. Oh, it also gave me my wife, who was a customer. But so I made a list of some of the qualities of these highly successful people and how they thought like an entrepreneur. And before I go through the list, and then I'll hand it over to Pete, I just want to say the one common theme that I think all of them had was they had winning habits, winning routines, and a winning mindset. They all had baked in a winning system of daily routines and habits, rituals, and a mindset. And that was really important. And I've always asked myself, well, how do you get winning routines, winning habits, and winning mindset? One thing everybody on this call can do Very simple. I do it. I talk about this in my Build Your Life Resume program. For anyone that wins, you'll hear this again. Or I'm saying raises money. Every month, I add one winning habit to my routine. Super simple. Imagine if you did everything the same in 2020 as you did in 2019, but you just added one winning habit. So at the end of the year, you had 12 amazing new winning habits that you layered on top of everything you did last year. What does that look like for me? Simple. January, I'm never going to be late to another meeting again, ever. February, I don't drink enough water. I'm going to drink 100 ounces of water. March, I'm going to add a 10-minute a day meditation practice into my life. Whatever. Very simple. But those habits and those routines and just introducing one, it's transformational. Now, it might sound easy. Why don't I do 5 in January and 10? Or why don't I have 20? No, just add one. How many people here listening added 12 winning habits, one winning habit to their routine last year? Probably not many of us. So it's a really simple thing and a simple exercise. Back to the list. So entrepreneurs, and I mentioned some of these, so I'll go fast on the ones that I mentioned on the last call. They're really good at overcoming negative self-talk. Now, we all have negative feelings that we're not good enough. We feel overwhelmed. We don't have what it takes. We all have that. And again, I mentioned this last time, entrepreneurs, they don't give it power. They don't talk about it. They counterpunch that negative thought with what they are good at. Well, I am good at sales. Let me focus at sales. I am creative. Let me focus on my creative. And then when they get in a position to hire people that can take care of their weaknesses and their flaws and what they're not good at, that's the first hire that they make. But they're really good at, when that self-doubt comes in, just saying, man, I'm not listening to you today. I'm not listening to you. I don't have enough time. My bus ride's too short for that. I don't have time to talk myself out of stuff. Number 2 is they visualize it. They see the end of the movie. They go right to the end. It's already done. They're just filling out the blank. They believe in their mind's eye. They brainwash themselves. And I'm talking about, I don't say like, they believe it. They believe it. It's baked into their DNA that they will, not that they can, that they will get whatever it is they're trying to get done. Number 3 is they handle the lows. This is a low time. We're quarantined. For many people, it's super challenging. And Marie said, it's, you got to handle things with a white glove and a lot of sensitivity. It's a different time. But thought leaders, entrepreneurs, winners, champions, as Trent said, they handle the lows really well. And they realize that it's just a moment in time. I'm an ultra runner. I know that when I get to mile 38, and things are breaking down, and my legs hurt, I know that if I just keep going with relentless, constant forward motion, things can get better. And I'm not going to always live in this state of mind where I am right now. As a kiddie pool attendant, I sold carrot sticks door to door. I knew that wasn't my life for the rest of my life. So entrepreneurs, they can handle the lows because they know it's not going to be there forever. They're going to get past this moment and they're just going to keep going forward. Number 4 is, man, they don't negotiate their goals. When you have a goal, it's unwavering. All right. If I'm going to start this pen company, I'm going to figure out how to get it into stores. I don't even know a manufacturer. I don't know anything about ink. I don't even know how the nuances of a pen. Okay. But the end of the movie, that goal, no matter, even if they can't, they get 1,000 no's, they don't negotiate their goals. When I wrote my book, Living with the Seal, I went to 11 publishers and they all said no. In my head, I had a #1 bestseller. I was already on the New York Times bestseller list in my head, and I didn't negotiate that goal. And on the 12th meeting, I found a small publisher called Center Street that was willing to take a bet on me. And we released a #1 New York Times bestseller and a #1 book. We don't negotiate our goals. Our goals aren't dictated by other people. When you start out in business, you go around, a lot of us, we go around and we seek validation. So we ask people for their opinions, and only 2 things are going to happen. If it's such a good idea, why don't the big guys do it? You don't have any background, you don't have any experience. Your friend, they're going to talk you out of it, or they're going to tell you what you already know or what you want to hear. So you only go to validation early on. You only go to people for advice that can help you, that have been in those shoes early on. You don't go just to seek validation. Number 5, entrepreneurs bet on themselves. They're willing to make a bet on themselves. Number 6, they create their own luck, the muffin story. They put themselves in a position where they realize luck's not going to happen sitting in my apartment. The only thing that happens if I send this DM is I don't get a response or I get a no. But I have to take control and take action, okay? So they put themselves in a position where they can attract luck. I am not the smartest. I am not the best, but I stay in the game a really long time. I'm the last one to leave a party because there could be a sale at the end of the party. I'm the first one there because I want to see what the room and I want to get the lay of the land. And, you know, there's been many times I've walked into the office and they're like, you got a sale last night? How'd you get that sale? I'm like, you left. That's how you left. I stayed. That's the difference. The next thing, number 7 is entrepreneurs become the expert. I mentioned that last time. They get really good at what they're doing. You guys want to talk to me about ultra marathon running? When I ran my first ultra marathon, there were a 100-mile race. I think there were 370 Americans that had run a race that distance at that time. I think I spoke to every single one of them on the phone. I wanted to know about that. I want to know what's ahead of me. Talk to people that have walked in those shoes before you. Become the expert. Get a virtual mentor right now for free that's been in the space you want to go into, and just learn, listen, watch their mannerisms, see what makes them tick. Number 8 is the entrepreneurs, people that think like entrepreneurs, invest in themselves. Gandhi had a famous quote that I love: learn like you're going to live forever, live like you're going to die tomorrow. Entrepreneurs invest in themselves, man. They do things like this, conferences, they listen, because there might be one nugget that Maurice said, or Trent said, or I said, or Pete said, one nugget that could significantly impact the next decade of your bus ride. Maybe 99% of the stuff I'm saying doesn't resonate, but if there's 1% that has an impact, you take it from me, you take it from Pete, you try stuff. I don't believe what experts say, man. I go against the grain. I live my life out of the box because I'm a trial and error guy. I don't listen to experts, I try. And if it works and it works for me, I keep doing it. And that's how I built my winning habits, winning routines, and winning mindset. Number 9, they respect the process. Being an entrepreneur takes time. I remember we had a Coca-Cola bought our coconut water company, Zico. The first meeting we had, the CEO of Coca-Cola said, I just want to let you know it's going to take you 8 years to build this brand. It takes 8 years to build a brand in this country. Now, some people can accelerate that. Of course, there's get rich quick stories, but this takes time, man. And if you want to just rush the product, the pitch, the words, like Marie said, writing a good email, I take 4 hours on an email. I write the perfect email that's short, with a big headline that lures people in, that says what's in it for me if I'm the recipient. Like, it takes time. So entrepreneurs respect that process and understand that's what they signed up for. Number 10, they fix things that are broken. They get in front of problems. For many people here, when we get a big problem, well, we say, I got a big problem. Problems are your biggest opportunity. One quick story. When we started Marquis Jet on December 26th, the busiest flight day of the year, year 1, we had 400 plus flights. And the pilots were going through a negotiation at the time. And they flexed a little leverage. And a lot of pilots called in sick. We had 400 people that showed up for their flights with no airplanes. And we had people that were pissed off. I had a customer that called me up that said, Jesse, you got any plates in your office? I'm at Aspen Airport right now, man, with my family. Nobody's here to pick me up. I got work tomorrow. My kids are crying. They just told me the plane won't be ready for 3 days. I'm paying $15,000. Do you have a plate in your office? I said, I do. He said, great. Because when I do get on this plane, I'm going to fly to New York. I'm going to take a shit on the plate and I'm going to smush it in your face. That's what the guy said to me. I was like, what? I had 450 highly pissed off customers. What did I do? I called each one of them and turned it into a win. I took an opportunity that was the worst day ever. And my partner and I got on the phone. We called them all and apologized and explained. And, you know, you take Entrepreneurs get in front of what's broken immediately. It's crisis management 101. Get in front of the problem. Number 11, winners keep learning. Entrepreneurs, winners, we keep learning. We understand that ride goes so fast. And Einstein said, once you stop learning, you start dying. We take advantage of the learning process that we all have. YouTube, these kind of conferences that Pete has so graciously set up, virtual conferences, posts, whatever. We get thirsty to learn more. Number 12, start the process. Entrepreneurs don't wait for other people to come out and do what they're thinking. Ready, fire, aim. You don't have to have it all figured out. Nobody has it all figured out. All right, you start the process. You figure out how, once you get going, how can I get from point A to point B the fastest? We have more of that. You'll learn that in the Build Your Life Resume course too. Number 13, entrepreneurs take criticism well. Most of us get really defensive when we get criticized, but really good leaders take criticism. They don't say, oh, what are you talking about, Pete? You don't know. You've never been in my business, Pete. You never had a private. How could you tell me that? An idiot. Pete Vargas, kidding me? They get defensive. But great leaders, great entrepreneurs, great people starting out in business, they take criticism well. And you're right. I should compliment, congratulate, and console more often. Let me try that. If it doesn't work, I'll tweak it. And last, I might have skipped one, but lastly, success is being good. I believe the definition of success is not being great at one thing. I know a lot of people that in business I used to look up to as a 23-year-old kid. I would walk into these big conference rooms and my God, this guy's got everything. A house in the Hamptons. He's got a car. He's got everything I wanted. And then as I got older, a lot of these role models and heroes to me in my 20s, I realized they're just rich. I don't like the way they live their life. Success to me means being good in multiple buckets. Being a good son, good grandson, in your case too, Pete. I wish I had that opportunity still. A good parent, a good boss, a good employee, a good friend, a good husband, a good dad. Like, success is being good at multiple buckets. And great entrepreneurs, great leaders, or as Trent would say, great champions, they take these principles I just talked about and they apply them to all the buckets of their life. I started this talk talking about soul, okay? Talking about soul. And I'm not here to talk about my course or anything, but the reason why I'm bringing this up is I always tell people in this Build Your Life Resume program, I don't care about these how-tos. Here's a list of 5 things to do. Here's 10 things. When you start bombarding people, listen to me guys on this, with all this advice and all these different things, and if it starts to feel like like it's overwhelming, or like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's when you take something, deprivation. When you start to feel like deprivation, I'm doing this, but it's depriving me of something I like, or it's really hard. It's never gonna last. What lasts, that's why diets don't work. Oh, it's deprivation. I can't eat the chocolate cake. Of course you're gonna have the chocolate cake in a month. When it becomes lifestyle, and it's in your soul, and it's the decision of how you want to live your life from this moment on till the rest of the bus ride, and you decide that I'm going to live it with soul, like they said at my Sarah's grandmother's funeral. How did he live his life? How did she live his life? When you make that decision, and it's just baked into your DNA, how you do anything is how you do everything, you're going to be successful regardless of the outcome. Because you're going to look at your journey here to here, and you're going to be like, I maximized it. I'm all in all the time, Pete. You know me, man. I'm all in all the time. I'm all in. We're going to do this call. I'm all in, whatever I can provide. I'm going to go teach my daughter how to ride her bike. I'm fucking in. I'm all in. I'm here. I'm not thinking about, I'm here. How do you choose to live your life during this time? My answer, I choose to live it with soul.
Woo! Man, gosh, folks. I mean, Jesse, unbelievable. Guys, this is why you asked to come back for part 2. Like, unbelievable. Like, fully present. This morning, my prayer was